I was born into a world where my last name carried more weight than I ever wanted it to. With a father who's the big-shot CEO of a company that dominates the stock exchange, you could say I had a life laid out for me, complete with all the privileges and expectations. But while my family's wealth could open doors to lavish lifestyles and extravagant indulgences, I never felt drawn to that world. Sure, the money was nice, but it never defined me. I always kept my feet firmly planted on the ground, knowing that there were things more valuable than material wealth. So, I chose a different path, one that led me away from the glitz and glamour of high society and towards something more meaningful. Charity work became my passion. I found fulfillment in helping those in need and making a difference in their lives, something no amount of money could buy. I lived a life that was, well, ordinary, but to me, it was extraordinary in its own way. I didn't need designer labels or champagne breakfasts to feel content. One typical evening, my friend Sarah decided we needed to break out of our routine and dragged us to a dive bar downtown. It was the kind of place where the beer was cheap, and the lighting was dim enough to hide your regrets. Sarah was buzzing with excitement, going on about some guy she met online who she was convinced was my perfect match. As fate would have it, the guy Sarah had in mind wasn't the one who caught my attention. Instead, it was Alex, a guy who seemed as out of place in that dive bar as a cat at a dog show. He wasn't dressed to impress, just in a simple tee and jeans, but there was something about his easy smile that drew me in. We struck up a conversation, and it flowed effortlessly. Alex talked about his job as a manager at a place I'd never heard of, but the passion in his voice was palpable. "You really dig your job, huh?" I asked, intrigued by his enthusiasm. "Absolutely," he replied, leaning in. "Every day's a challenge, but hey, I'm not here to bore you with work talk." We talked about everything and nothing as the night wore on, our group mingling around us. It was refreshing to connect with someone who wasn't trying to impress me with their wealth or status. Alex seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me, not because of my family name, but because of who I was. As the night started winding down, I noticed a look in Alex's eyes, a hint of something more. And in that moment, I couldn't help but wonder where this unexpected connection might lead us. Alex's proposal caught me off guard, but in the best possible way. As we walked home, Sarah couldn't contain her excitement, teasing me with "I told you so's" and giggles. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake off the mix of surprise and anticipation swirling inside me. Alex had been a breath of fresh air in my often stale world, and the idea of dinner together sounded more enticing than ever. Our casual hangouts soon turned into spending more time at each other's places, with my cozy apartment becoming our preferred spot, mainly because Alex's roommates were, well, a bit chaotic. But amidst the clutter of daily life, there was a moment that changed everything. One evening, lounging on the couch after devouring what could only be described as the world's most average takeout pizza, Alex broached the topic with a seriousness that contrasted with the casualness of our surroundings. "Jessica, how do you feel about making this a more permanent arrangement?" he asked, crumbs still clinging to the corner of his mouth. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, half expecting him to suggest something mundane like splitting a Netflix account. But his next words took me by surprise. "I was thinking more like a life together," he said, his easy chuckle filling the room. In that moment, with the simplicity and straightforwardness of his proposal, everything clicked into place. There were no grand gestures or dramatic backdrops, just us, in our element, and it felt right. "Yes," I replied without hesitation, feeling a rush of excitement. 1,000 times, yes. And just like that, with the aroma of cheap pizza as our witness, we decided to tie the knot. It was swift, but when you know, you know. The next hurdle was telling our families. My parents, with their "as long as you're happy" mantra, seemed surprisingly supportive, although I could sense their skepticism lurking beneath the surface. Breaking the news over a fancy dinner felt surreal, with Dad pausing midair with his fork and Mom smiling a bit too tightly. But despite their initial reservations, their love for me was undeniable, and they eventually came around, accepting Alex into our family with open arms. Alex's family, on the other hand, presented a different challenge. Their cozy little house, perpetually smelling of fresh cookies, seemed like the epitome of warmth and comfort. But I couldn't help feeling a twinge of nervousness as we approached their doorstep, unsure of how they would react to the news of our engagement. Judy and Martin, Alex's parents, welcomed me into their home with open arms, treating me as if I had always been a part of the family. Their down-to-earth nature was a stark contrast to the world I came from, but their warmth was genuine and enveloping. As we discussed wedding plans over a plate of Judy's infamous cookies, Martin casually asked about setting a date. I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude for their excitement and support. "We're thinking sooner rather than later," I replied, relieved at their positive reaction. Judy's beaming smile only added to the warmth of the moment. It became clear that while our worlds may have been different, the common ground of genuine happiness for me and Alex bridged any divide. We both agreed on keeping the wedding simple and true to ourselves, a small ceremony with close friends and family, and of course, an open bar, because as Alex put it, if we're doing this, we're making sure everyone's having a good time. Our engagement felt swift, not because we were rushing, but because everything fell into place effortlessly. Amidst the whirlwind of planning, there were quiet moments shared between us that affirmed we were making the right decision. Living with Alex was everything I had hoped for and more. We created our little haven in the cozy, modern apartment I had rented, filled with love, laughter, and, let's be honest, a ton of takeout containers. Neither of us were culinary wizards, but we made do with our shared lack of kitchen prowess. It wasn't long before I started noticing how Judy and Martin had a subtle way of dropping hints whenever they visited. At first, it was endearing, compliments on our new coffee maker or admiration for our comfortable sofa. Wanting to be the good daughter-in-law, I would surprise them with gifts here and there, only to be met with protests of "you shouldn't have" and "this is too much." Yet, despite their initial reluctance, their hints grew more frequent and unmistakable over time. The hints from Judy and Martin became as obvious as a brick through a window, with comments about our possessions becoming more frequent. Alex, oblivious to the change in tone, would relay their latest remarks without a second thought. After splurging on a fancy new TV for them, I found myself feeling the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. One evening, as Alex and I lounged on the couch, he praised their appreciation for the TV, calling me amazing. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Do they expect us to keep doing this? It's getting a bit much, don't you think? I voiced my concerns, frustration creeping into my tone. Alex seemed taken aback, insisting that his parents were just happy, not taking advantage. But as our conversation ended with an uneasy truce, it was clear that we were on different pages. Judy and Martin's gratitude had evolved into entitlement, and it was putting a strain on our relationship. I loved Alex, but I wasn't willing to become a bottomless ATM for his parents. Then, when my dad's company hit the skids, everything changed. The cushy life I had known vanished in an instant, and with it, the dynamics of our relationship took a sharp nosedive. It wasn't a gradual shift, it was like flipping a switch from daylight to darkness. Breaking the news to Alex and his parents was a conversation I had been dreading. "Listen up, things are going to get tight. Dad's company is tanking, and we're in for a rough ride," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor of nerves. Alex's reaction felt like a gut punch. "You're kidding me, right? What do you mean we can't live like we used to because of your dad's mess?" His words were like ice, and for a moment, I wished the floor would swallow me whole. Judy and Martin's faces mirrored Alex's disbelief, their disappointment barely concealed. The situation had taken an unexpected turn, and navigating it was going to be a challenge for us all. Martin's reproachful tone cut through the air, accusing me of putting them in this situation. The warmth and camaraderie we once shared evaporated, replaced by a cold expectation that I was somehow to blame for my family's financial downturn. Moving in with them was presented as a temporary solution, but it felt more like a prison sentence. Our once independent life was swapped for a guest room that felt like a cell, in the house of two people who clearly saw us as a nuisance. Every day was charged with tension, a reminder of my perceived failure. Judy's sharp reminders about cutting back on expenses and Martin's comments on saving costs only added to the strain. But it was Alex's transformation that hurt the most. The man I married seemed to have vanished, replaced by someone who saw me as a disappointment. Our conversations turned into minefields, every word a potential trigger for another outburst. I thought marrying him meant security, not this constant struggle. His anger flared over the smallest things, his words slicing through me like knives. It became clear that we weren't just dealing with financial stress, this was a test of our relationship. Judy's birthday dinner was supposed to be a break from the tension, but it turned into a showdown. Alex's smirk as he ordered steak and lobster for himself, throwing a condescending look my way, felt like a betrayal. And when Judy joined in, adding her 2 cents about overspending, it was the final blow. I felt trapped, torn between the disillusionment from my husband and his parents, and grappling with my own sense of failure. The future suddenly felt uncertain, and I wondered if our relationship could survive the weight of this pressure. The fury coursing through me wasn't embarrassment, but pure rage. Soup? What's this, some kind of sick joke? I snapped back, my voice sharper than I intended. Alex tried to brush it off, claiming it was just a bit of fun, but his smirk only fueled my anger. When he dismissed my concerns, calling it fun, I couldn't contain my frustration. This is your idea of fun? When the chips are down, you just show how petty you really are. I can't believe I fell for your act. The restaurant fell silent, every eye on us as I stood up, unable to stomach another moment of their disrespect. As Alex reached out, trying to play the peacemaker, I felt a surge of defiance. A scene? You think I care about making a scene after that stunt? This is about respect, something you clearly have none of. I stormed out, the weight of their stares heavy on my back as I stepped into the night. Ignoring the barrage of messages from Alex, I drove back to their place, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. How had things gone so sour? I packed my bags in record time, each folded shirt a painful reminder of the life I was leaving behind. Turning off my phone, I embraced the eerie silence, knowing that this night wasn't just the end of a disastrous dinner, it was the close of a chapter one had no interest in revisiting. Judy's birthday dinner had been a wake-up call, revealing the true colors of our relationship. With my decision made, I found myself driving to my parents' house, seeking sanctuary and advice from my dad. Walking into the familiar surroundings, I knew I was making the right choice. As my dad looked up from his papers, concern etched on his face, I realized that this was where I needed to be. My dad's concern etched his face as I poured out the evening's events, the weight of it all spilling from me in a flood. I recounted the dinner, the dynamics with Alex and his parents, and how I felt reduced to nothing but a source of income for them. Dad listened in silence, his expression hardening with every word. When I finished, he sighed, a sound carrying years of experience and a hint of sorrow. Jessica, I saw this coming. I just hoped I was wrong, he finally said, his voice steady but filled with empathy. How could I have been so blind, Dad? I thought Alex. I thought we were different, I confessed, feeling the weight of my naivety. Dad walked over, putting an arm around my shoulders. You wanted to see the best in him, in them. There's no fault in that. But people show their true colors in tough times. It's a hard lesson, but an important one, he assured me. But what do I do now? I can't go back there, I lamented, my nerves on edge. Dad's confidence was a balm to my frayed emotions. Then he shared something that took me by surprise. You know, the company situation isn't as dire as it seems. We're actually on the verge of a breakthrough. It was a strategic move, a way to weed out the opportunists. Stunned, I stared at him. So you mean to say we're not broke? His chuckle, part relief and part amusement, washed over me. Far from it. But it was important to see who would stick around when the chips were down. Unfortunately, Alex and his family showed their true selves. The revelation was a lot to process. My anger towards Alex and his parents was now mixed with a sense of vindication. They had revealed their true motives, freeing me from a future of manipulation and deceit. Dad, I don't know whether to be relieved or furious, I admitted, the conflicting emotions swirling inside me. Be both. It's okay. But remember, this experience has taught you something invaluable about people and their intentions. Use it, learn from it, Dad advised, grounding me. Walking up to Judy and Martin's house the next day felt like heading into the lion's den. I was ready for a showdown, but nothing could have prepared me for the cold reception I received. Alex stood there, divorce papers in hand, his expression a mix of triumphant disdain. After some time had passed, there came a gentle knock on my door, interrupting the quiet of my evening. Curious, I made my way to answer it, finding a delivery person standing on the other side, holding a rather large package. Perplexed, I accepted it and signed for the delivery before bringing it inside. As I carefully tore open the wrapping, my heart began to race with anticipation. Inside the package lay a breathtaking painting, depicting a tranquil scene that seemed worlds away from the chaos and turmoil I had left behind. A small note attached to the frame caught my eye, its words carrying a weight of sentiment that touched me deeply. For a new beginning. Love, Dad. Tears welled up in my eyes as the significance of this gesture washed over me. It wasn't just a painting, it was a symbol of hope, a beacon guiding me towards a fresh start. With a renewed sense of determination, I found the perfect spot to hang it in my new apartment, the very first step towards rebuilding my life on my own terms. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the familiar routine and the sense of purpose it provided. Slowly but surely, the wounds of the past began to heal, leaving behind scars as reminders of the battles I had fought and conquered. Occasionally, I would receive messages from Alex or his parents, attempts at reconciliation or apologies laced with excuses. Yet, with each communication, I remained steadfast in my resolve, refusing to be drawn back into the toxicity of the past. Instead, I focused on the present moment, embracing the newfound freedom and the endless opportunities that lay before me. I rekindled old friendships, pursued new hobbies, and rediscovered the simple joys of life that had once brought me so much happiness. Standing on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sun set on another day, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. Though the road ahead may be uncertain, I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the lessons learned and the resilience gained from overcoming adversity. After the divorce was finalized, I found myself out for coffee with Sarah, my ever-supportive friend who had been there through it all. "Girl, you look like a weight's been lifted," she commented, sipping her latte. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. "You have no idea. It's like I can finally breathe again," I replied. Sarah leaned in, her expression turning serious. "So, what's next for you, Jess? You've got a clean slate now." I thought about it, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. "I'm not sure, but I'm excited to find out. Maybe I'll travel, pick up some of the charity work I had to put on hold. As for love..." I paused, giving her a wry smile. "I think I'll give that a miss for a while. Just make sure you're doing what makes you happy, okay? You deserve it after all that drama," she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "Thanks, Sarah. That's the plan." Not long after that conversation, my phone started buzzing with calls and messages from Alex. He was pleading, saying he'd changed, that we could start over. His parents even got in on the act, sending messages filled with apologies and invitations to talk things over. Sitting in my room, phone in hand, I couldn't help but laugh. The sheer audacity was almost admirable, almost. I typed out a response, one I'd been mulling over for days. "Alex, moving on means moving forward, not going back to what broke you. I wish you all the best, but this is where our path ends for good. Take care." Hitting send felt like closing the final chapter of a book I'd been stuck in for too long. And just like that, I was ready to start writing a new one. The next few months were a blur of activity. I threw myself into my work, took up volunteering with a vengeance, and even booked a solo trip to a place I'd always wanted to visit. Life was full, and for the first time in a long while, it was fulfilling too. One evening, sitting on a balcony overlooking a bustling street in a far-off city, I realized I'd found what I'd been searching for all along: peace. The drama, the heartache, the betrayal, it all seemed like a distant memory. My phone buzzed with a new message, but this time it was from a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I opened it. It was from someone I'd met during my travels, someone who'd made me laugh and think in equal measure. "Hey Jessica, how about dinner when you're back?" No expectations, just food and good company. I stared at the message, a smile slowly spreading across my face. Maybe it was time to open my heart again, but on my terms, at my pace. "Yes, I'd like that," I typed back, hitting send before I could second-guess myself. Looking out at the city lights, I felt a sense of excitement for the future. I had moved on, not just from Alex and his family, but from the person I was when I was with them. I was stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I found myself fully immersed in the present moment, embracing every opportunity that came my way. I rekindled old passions and discovered new interests, each experience adding depth and richness to my life. Occasionally, thoughts of Alex and his family would surface, but I remained resolute in my decision to move forward. Their attempts at reconciliation only served as reminders of the strength and independence I had cultivated in their absence. One afternoon, while sorting through old belongings, I stumbled upon the painting my father had sent me, a constant reminder of the unwavering support and love that surrounded me. With a smile, I dusted it off and found a prominent place for it in my home, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As the seasons changed and time marched on, I found myself more grounded and at peace than ever before. I had weathered the storms of life and emerged stronger on the other side, ready to embrace whatever the future held. And so, as I sat on the balcony of my apartment, gazing out at the world below, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. I had come a long way from the person I once was, and I knew that the journey was far from over. With a renewed sense of purpose and a heart full of hope, I looked to the horizon, eager to see where the road would take me next. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head-on, knowing that I had the strength and resilience to overcome anything life